Do I need to do the intro? Nah.
They probably forgot what the podcast
This is about. I know. Hi guys. We're back.
Hey.
Hey. As you can tell, it's a very gloomy Sunday. Yeah, you can tell that it's a Sunday.
Gloomy Sunday morning, which is
and
obvious.
that we're in Austin, obviously. We are out of town. We're in a different space, and we just wanted to address that.
The elephant in the room.
The elephant in the room. We had one of Shaheen's events for his community.
Yeah.
And it went really well.
Went much better than we expected.
Yeah, it was a meetup.
I was expecting 4 people to come. We had 6.
Wow. Well, including us.
Right, including us.
But that's why we're in Austin, and we're leaving actually, today after this podcast.
We'll be leaving in 2 hours.
Yeah, so we just wanted to get a quick film in before we leave. Because the plan was to always have the podcast here, so yeah, excuse the background, excuse the lack of lighting. We're really trying to work with gloomy weather and also just gloomy vibe. It's been a whirlwind, y'all.
What's going on?
So I don't know. I feel like I'm in this. I just went on pre-sale for my brand Sans Raison.
You're pre-selling your sweatshirts.
My sweatshirts, and I also released 2 digital products of in the same week.
Free for a limited time. And it honestly has nothing to do with the business necessarily. It's just kind of I was telling Shaheen earlier today, the mental endurance. I feel like it's just, I feel like we're in the long stretch now. It's March, and even though it's only been 3 months of us, Us?
of me doing this particular business, or going
doing Son.
Doing Son just full on. I know it's been longer of me
thinking about it,
doing entrepreneurship, going out on my own, whatever, but even though this new era of my life, which I feel like has been this year, has only been for 3 months, right. It just feels like 6. Everything feels double, just because I've changed my whole routine, I've changed my whole outlook on life, everything has changed, so it just feels
it's a whole different ball game, because before you were, when you were working at Ericsson, it's okay, it's a full-time job, corporate girl,
I get paid,
show up, get paid, whatever. Then freelance, it was
a little bit more spice, more
flexibility, but it's fundamentally the same thing. Showing up,
get paid,
and getting paid to do something.
Right
now it's this whole different thing where you are just doing particular activities, and somehow it's money is showing up in the bank account,
and I can't pinpoint it yet. I don't have enough experience, or I don't know exactly how to
the
generate it
between your actions and the feedback or the money. It's not
clear. Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes it very unpredictable, and obviously we chose to be in this situation, but they're the only way to get through it is through you just have to keep going through it, and that's kind of what we wanted to talk about today. Just how do you keep your head down? How do you keep trusting? How do you keep coming back to it even when you're feeling all of these feelings, uncertainty,
negative emotions?
Yeah, just negative. It's sometimes it's just I don't even know what to call it, not depressive, but just kind of these very sedated moods. It's just it's not super,
you just feel dead on the inside.
Yeah, it's not super fun all the time. It's not glamorous. It's not you're not always excited. And I don't necessarily, I know people say that all the time. I've heard entrepreneurs say that all the time, and I'm just yeah, well, that's not gonna work, because I need constant excitement, novelty. I'm just that person. I have to have a treat every day, and I'm starting to feel the feelings of okay, yeah, you're really not gonna feel like that every day. And I am pretty good at picking myself back up when I feel down. I don't like feeling down for too long, so I'm pretty good at just getting back into a positive mood. I think, I don't know, you probably know better than me, but I feel I have to be patient now with those negative emotions. I have to, because
Right.
they're going to come. This is a whole new arena, whole new ball game. I've always thought like selling products was like this mystical, magical thing.
Yeah.
And now that I'm doing it, it feels even more mystical and magical. I'm like, I still don't know what's going on.
Right.
And like, maybe that'll change in like a few months. I don't know, but
you're starting to see how the sausage is made.
Yeah. And it's just, I was telling him, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just I'm scared of every possibility. Everything's on the table. Like, I could sell out and never sell again. I could never sell anything now. And then, maybe in 3 years sell, a lot of products. I don't know. It just, everything. I've seen so many examples of people who have started businesses and how it goes for them. And it almost like kind of F's you up mentally. 'Cause you're just like, there's no one predictable outcome. It could be anything.
Right.
And I think that's what is also like, at this point, I feel like I've been I don't know if it sounds bad, about like beaten with a stick to the point where you're just kind of numb to
I feel
everything,
the same way. Like,
it
always, a lot of people reach out because of the content.
Yeah.
And it's like these opportunities,
Yes.
these potential realities and futures, and it's fun and exciting.
Yeah.
Over time, it's gotten less fun and
Yes.
exciting
Mhm.
because you just get burnt over and over again,
Yeah, you get excited about this opportunity, it doesn't
and
work out,
nothing
or it's not
happens.
aligned.
Most of those, nothing
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, it's not real till they sign the contract.
I was telling him he's got so far, like every time he would do a project and something would happen, he'd be like, no, I'm not gonna get excited yet. I'm like, okay. And then by the time like they were actually signing the contract, he's like, can't get excited until the money's in my account.
Yeah.
And I was just like, he's not gonna get excited until his taxes are due at this point. Like,
but really, you have to have that mindset, like in business. It's not real until the money's in your bank account.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get excited prematurely.
Mm-hmm.
And then be disappointed at some point. And I think going through that
over and over again,
a handful of times, is what
numb.
leads to that, sedation, as you were saying.
Literally. And I think like with freelance, I would get excited and I would get like burned sometimes, but most of the time I could get excited and remain excited, because if I closed a client, like it was pretty clear that we were going to move forward, and then I would make the money and everything was as promised. There's a few times where things didn't work out, but most of the time I could get excited and remain that way. Now it's just like, oh, I can get excited about this sale, but then, oh shit, I realize like there's a fee that is like taking up half of this money anyway, or I have to start investing in something else again. There's no like, you're not really going to feel comfortable until you hit a certain
you hit your stride,
really
hit a rhythm.
Yeah, like we were talking about it last night, like really until we see 100K in the bank.
Oh,
like,
right. You feel like you have the safety net.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to feel safe, because even up into the point where you could be making a livable income, but with the business, there's so much you have to reinvest into it. There's no point in feeling secure with an income.
Could just like stop.
Oh yeah, and also like literally, like you can be making sales and it just doesn't work anymore.
Right.
Like I know there's things you can do to improve, but you will have to go through a new learning curve before that. It's just I don't know, and maybe we're just at the point where all of these things are on the table, because I remember like, back in like high school or college, most of us were like, what job do I pick? Everything's on the table. Like you have too many options. But as you grow up, it becomes clear, like very clear, like what you like doing, what you don't like doing. And I think that's where we are in terms of entrepreneurship. Like, even though we've picked our respective like companies, like there's still so many ways we could do it, or so many options within it.
So many business models.
Everything just feels like scary and like overwhelming. But at the same time, I don't know, still with all of this shit, it's so much easier than me wasting my life away at, doing something I don't care about.
Right.
And at least I feel like I'm learning how to overcome this, because this is always something I never fully went into, because I felt like I didn't know how to do it. I was like, I don't know how to do product. I don't know how to sell things. I don't know. And I just don't know, and I won't know. But now I feel like even if I suck at it, at least I know what it looks like and I know what I can do. So I feel good that I'm accomplishing that, if anything. But yeah, that's kind of that's our little life update, because it's just been like a slow grind, like up until the end of Q1, and it's kind of, it's getting more aligned, but simultaneously more confusing at the same time. Like for me, at least, like I feel like I'm getting more aligned to what I want to do in my career for the rest of my life, but I also feel, how I described it to him is kind of like existential. Like I just feel kind of all over the place at the same time, but it's weird. Yeah.
I mean, realistically, you're 3 months into it, so
I know
it should be expected that you're confused and lost, and a lot of gaps in your understanding.
Yeah.
But it's only gonna get more clear.
Yeah.
You know, and typically it takes like a couple of years to really settle into a new industry or new type of world. You know, to learn a new field.
It'll be a year from when I like fully went out on my own, like when I stopped freelancing, and even though I was doing that consulting business that flopped, like when I started, it was April of last year when I really started to be like, okay, I'm gonna get my LLC, I'm gonna start doing things by myself. I don't know exactly how it's gonna look, so it'll be a year.
That's crazy. It's like you decided to start and you didn't really know like what to do. I guess you did start with consulting, and now you're pivoting to Son.
And
I think that's just the way it is. You know, I was talking to someone on Friday, I think. He's like a mentor to a lot of entrepreneurs. I think he says he mentors 500 founders every year. Like that's just what he does.
That's his job. Okay.
Because he's like built companies and sold them. Like he's a serial entrepreneur now. He's like, you know, been there, done that kind of thing. And he was saying there are like 2 phases for entrepreneurs. What he was calling the ADD phase and the OCD phase. And so ADD is like a metaphor of like you're just running around trying a bunch of different things. You don't really know what works, and from the outside looking in,
it looks crazy.
It makes no sense. It's like what are you doing? That's not a job. You're just running around doing a bunch of random things. And then in that phase, and you could be in this phase for years. It's just some confluence of, I was an event planner, and I was an event planner in university, and I have this like specific skill set in data science, and now there's a lot of demand for data science events or something like that.
It looks put together.
And it looks put together, and that's what's happening with the data entrepreneurs. Like yesterday at the meetup, like they were saying like, it looks like there was all this whole master plan, and I'm telling them like there was never a plan. You know, I was just doing these things
because I was interested in these individual things, and then they come together.
And then, just randomly some opportunity comes up or some traction comes out of nowhere. And so when the opportunity comes up, like let's say, I don't know, like there was a lot of demand for like conferences or something like that, or people really wanted to do like more of these events or something. Like I would be uniquely qualified to take that opportunity. And so I could get laser focused on that one thing, and then that's like the OCD phase. I guess I should have used the real example, because I feel like I'm making that transition right now, where I was in this ADD phase, and I was like, doing the content creation, I was doing the consulting, I had the community, and it was always like this thing. I don't know. I feel like consulting, the idea was this is how I'm going to make money. But in the past 7 months, I've made not a lot of money from consulting, like maybe $3 to $4 grand, something like that. There's no way, and I've made surprisingly much more, like probably the
same or more. With content.
Maybe probably like $5 grand from content creation. So it's like, okay, I'm actually making more money from content creation, even though like what makes sense is to do consulting.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Seems more stable.
And you can make a lot more money doing consulting. It's like it's a higher probability of that actually happening. But if you look at my history, like content creation has been better. So like what I'm doing, like I'm in the transition of from like, okay, let me focus only on content creation and really like focus mainly on YouTube. And so like making that transition is it's scary.
Yeah.
And from the outside looking in, I'm sure it makes no sense. Like that's not a job. Like,
and
making
it's not
YouTube videos.
Stable at all. Like going towards content creation is
because that really could just like
it could just stop. And it doesn't make sense in a lot of ways, but I think that's the whole point of like Get Paid to Live and kind of the brand that I've started, which is like there is more to your natural interest and intuition than you think. You know, there's like enough of a reason there for you to go after it, even if it doesn't make sense to people. Because I mean, a lot of things don't make sense to people and it makes perfect sense to me. And a lot of things that don't make sense to me makes a lot of sense to other people. So like what makes sense is usually what society is telling you that makes sense, but there's no guarantee that actually fits with your day-to-day life and that you agree with that. So it doesn't even make sense to you weight that in decision making for your life,
like other people's opinions.
Exactly.
And the reality is like you can't know the thing as an outsider. Like if I didn't spend the last 3 years making YouTube videos, like I would have no idea what it was actually about. Like, I would just have like this outsider's perspective.
Right. And it's like what's so crazy about this field, like content creation, anything that kind of has this like extreme
disparity.
Just like this, it's very volatile, but at the same time, like this could be good or bad. Like I feel like anything like that, you never know when the moment is going to be that all of those years have built up to this singular moment where things just seem to like blow up overnight. And it's like, you can't necessarily depend on that, but if you do it for long enough, you can pretty much expect that is bound to happen. If you're if you're trying to grow and get better at it, like, and if you're passionate about it, like that's a huge requirement. Like if you care enough about it.
It's the same way with business in general. It's the same type of thing. You know, things compound on themselves, you know, and things grow exponentially, not linearly. So, you know, in content creation, if you're growing, I grew 25% in the last 28 days. That means 1/4 of all of my subscribers subscribed in the last month, and I've been doing it for like over 36 months. I got 25% of my subscribers in the most recent 2% of the time that I've been doing this.
And it's like,
that's the thing, like everything can change in a very short period of time. And it's the same thing with business. Like most companies, if they're growing at a particular rate, like if they're growing at 25% a month, they're going to have 25% of their customers in the last
whatever days or months or whatever. I feel like that's kind of part of this trusting the process is like, you have to understand you're in a completely different world. Like most people are in a linear world where you do 5 this day, you get 10 this day. You do 10 this day, you get 10. What is it? Okay, 20. Let's use a different example.
Like you work 40 hours and you get
this amount of money.
This money.
And if you work double that hours, you get double amount of that money. And it's like that's not the world. If you're going towards any life where I feel like it's not conventional, I really feel like business, content creation, all of these things where like it's not linear, basically. That's just not the rules don't apply anymore. Those same rules don't apply. And I think that's why it makes it hard to trust this process. Cause you're like, oh, if I put in this amount of hours and I got nothing, or I got worse than I did yesterday, then this life can't work for me. And it's like, but those rules don't apply to this game at all. Like that's not how it works. Like you could put in years of work and get it all on the 5th year. Like you just never know when it's going to come. So that's basically why the outcome in this world or this game can't be the number one priority. It has to be what you're interested in. You getting better as a creator, you getting better as a business person. You need something else to focus on. I think that's the easiest way to, it's still hard of course, but like that's the easiest way to trust this process is literally you have to trust in something other than
the thing, if that makes sense. Like you have to trust in yourself or your growth or your habits or your routine. Like you need to put your trust in something else, a mindset, you know, because the outcome is not going to give you what you're looking for on a day-to-day basis for sure.
Yeah, if you focus on the money or the subscribers or whatever, I feel like that's just the fastest way to kill yourself.
Yeah, look, I've tried it. Like with TikTok, it was such a slot machine thing, and I thought that could kind of be like my way into like making content creation my full-time job, and it just was not giving. It was too rapid and it was too volatile. It was too much like, and it can be good, like you can still have it there, but I think I was putting too much trust in that. I was putting too much trust in that algorithm for that to be the thing that gets me the career I want. And it's like, that's not how I feel like how, you know, because this is how I knew that you're putting your trust in the wrong thing, is you have time to sit around and think about that. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. Right. Like, looking back at when I kind of like failed with trusting in the right thing, I feel like I had too much time to sit around and contemplate. I posted my 3 videos in a day on TikTok, and I would be like obsessing over each one, thinking about it, like checking my stats constantly. And it's like, okay, if you are really bettering or improving yourself, you wouldn't have the time to sit around and be doing that. Now, when I switched my focus to how can I be a better communicator? How can I be a better storyteller? How can I be an entrepreneur, period? Like, how can I be someone who sells products? My day was so stacked with things to better myself because I'm actually focusing on the things that I'm bad at, not focusing on why am I not getting rewarded for the things I'm good at. I didn't have time to sit around and think about like, oh my God, like I was on too many platforms. I was trying to express my ideas on YouTube and TikTok and start thinking of product ideas and start looking things up and start exercising more so I can have more mental clarity. I didn't have time to think about all of these little like silly things like, why am I not getting this? Or why didn't I get this brand deal? And I think that's kind of like, that was a sign for me that I wasn't focusing on the right thing. My focus was on the wrong stuff, you know, because I had time to sit there and throw a pity party for myself, basically. Now when I feel bad, it's just like, okay, I just got to work out while I feel sad. I just got to, you know, do my daily writing while I feel like this is pointless, but I still don't have time. Like, actually sitting down and thinking about how negative I feel is worse than just doing this thing, you know? So I feel like that was something I realized. I do want to, on that note, I do want to talk about like mindset a little bit, just like,
I was gonna say something like, it seems like it wasn't so much changing your activities, because you're still doing YouTube, you're still doing TikTok, you know? But it's really, you just changed how you looked at it, which just comes down to your mindset. And I'll just talk about YouTube because that's what I know. And actually, I see this, like I see people making YouTube videos or even writing Medium articles based on what they think people like. And that's what happens when you're trying to, you know, increase subscribers or increase ad revenue or
virality.
Like, you're chasing the output, you're chasing the outcome, and a lot of times, like, that stuff doesn't get. It doesn't do well. It doesn't perform well. Sometimes it does because, you know, they go viral sometimes. But I don't know. It's, for whatever reason, it just doesn't resonate with people, you know, the same way. But every time I've made content, like, I've never made content with that perspective because it's always been educational content. And the system has always been, I'm curious about this thing. I want to learn it. And then part of my learning process is creating a narrative around it and explaining it in a simple way. So I'll write an article and make a YouTube video, like talking through it, like write some example code or something like that. And really just doing that process is the reward because I've learned this thing that was new, scary, complicated, and then I've overcome that. And it's like this it's this inherently valuable thing, and I feel for whatever reason that comes through for other people too, because I've genuinely gained value from creating this content. And it seems that people generally get value through listening to it or reading it, because they go through that same process I went through in some way, you know? And so they get that clarity and that realization through the content. And I think that's why it gets traction. That's why it's sticky. And it's, it goes to that thing Jeff Bezos talks about, which is like the missionary versus mercenary mindset. The missionary is motivated, is pursuing a bigger mission, while the mercenary is just trying to make money. And like the more I kind of, stick around, I feel like what he said is true, in that the irony is that missionaries end up making more money than mercenaries. Because I feel like there's just something about the mercenary mindset. Like I haven't got it all figured out and I can't quite put my finger on it. But sometimes you just put yourself in these situations that aren't aligned with you and you don't really believe in. So instead of bringing your like full capacity to it, you're only bringing part of your capacity, and maybe you don't even feel like yourself. I was talking to someone that was running a successful consulting firm in the past, and they were saying that at times they didn't feel like themselves because they were like overselling. They were saying that they could do things they couldn't really do, and then they would just figure it out. And it's like, that's a way to
my whole freelance business.
Like that's natural, and like you kind of do whatever it takes to like get the sale,
and you don't even notice it sometimes.
You're just, that's like, I think that is the mercenary mindset, and I feel like that's what like rubs people the wrong way. And there's an inherent risk to it, because you rub some people the wrong way, it like hurts your reputation, it hurts your relationships. So like maybe you get the feedback, the reward in the short term, but long term you kind of have to, you're burning relationships essentially. Of course you're not burning all your relationships, but you're burning more relationships than the missionary. I feel like when you're a missionary or the missionary, they don't pretend to be anything that they're not. So the people that they attract are people that are just aligned with them, you know? And I feel like that is a much better long-term solution, because you never have to like fake anything or hide anything. You can just be yourself, which is like the easiest thing to be. And then people who naturally resonate with that will come to you, and then you'll have these relationships. So like being a missionary, you don't make money fast. Like I've been doing
and
YouTube
it's really
for
slow.
years. I've been doing it for over 3 years now, and just now, like I don't even make a livable income off content creation.
I know, it's kind of crazy. I was like thinking about this too. I guess this might be a mix of privilege or something with it too, but I was just like, I had to be reminded that the things I'm doing right now are eventually supposed to make money. Like I literally, like I feel like this whole quarter I just kind of, I don't know, forgot is the right word. It doesn't, I'm not thinking about it on a day-to-day. I feel like really blessed and to be in a situation where like we do kind of have a year to make our shit work, and we're not living glamorously, but we're surviving, which is even surprising in and of itself. But I kind of forgot that, like, oh yeah, at some point this stuff's supposed to generate income, because I've been so focused on how can I be a better storyteller, like how can I make content that's aligned with me, how can I make products that are aligned with me and other people. Like I'm more interested now, I feel like, in the improvement of myself, which I think that's also what brings the lows, because it's no longer like I got 5 subscribers and I feel like, yeah, like it's more like, do I feel like that video resonated with people? Do I feel like it resonated with me? Like, was that the story I wanted to tell? And those kind of questions, you don't get just cheap hits every time you post a video. It's more like over the course of a month, you can see your progress, or it's like you get this one random comment where you're like, okay, I finally feel like I achieved what I, was trying to do with that video. Or you're surprised by things like me selling these products. Like I didn't think people would actually like them, and they're telling me like, yeah, I did, but I had to make the whole damn product before they got it, So it's like, it's such a long game. And I feel like it's so different than how I used to view success. And the success now comes from me through reflection, through me journaling, or me. It's nothing you can wait on. It's like you get a random comment or you get a random opportunity, and then you're like, oh, this is actually working.
Right.
So when you're in that mindset, I don't even think about like getting money from this stuff, because I don't know how to describe it. Like when you're on a scavenger hunt for the dopamine hit, you just forget that you're even looking for it, because you're getting you're having to learn so many things on the way. You know, you even forget what you're looking for.
You're kind of so involved in the process, in the pursuit, that you almost completely forget what you're looking for.
Exactly. And that's what I feel like these days, which I guess is a good thing, but it's also hard. It's very these days, it takes me a week to get one dopamine hit, which is usually posting a YouTube video. And it's a lot. It's like probably 10 to 15 hours of work for one hit. And then that's usually for my video just to flop for the first week. So it's really stretched my delayed gratification. Like it's really pushed it to where I used to just want to get a hit from a TikTok video. Now it's like 2-week lead time.
Well, you know, I think there might be opportunity to let go of that flop or not flop
yes
from the equation.
Yeah.
Because I think ideally, just because your videos, you're expressing your feelings, your emotion, like what you're going through, and these ideas that you don't hear enough people talking about. And I feel the expression of that and the
just packaging it up,
creating this piece of content that demonstrates this idea or feeling that was just so hard to make sense of at one point. I think that should be the main focus. And if it resonates with people and it kind of gets traction, like great. But if it flops, you know, it doesn't really matter. You know, you've talked about it. Like, I made the video.
You've done a good job of putting it together.
Like I made that video on multi-kills, which is like a concept that I've basically based my whole business around.
Right.
And it's gotten like 300 views on YouTube, but I'm still glad that that's out there, because if I get in a conversation with someone and I'm talking about it, I always have that. It's
like a body of work.
I can refer them to that video or that article. You know, it just gives me that satisfaction.
Yeah, exactly. Like that. I feel like that's why I still do it. You know, like that's why I still show up anyway, because I feel like with YouTube specifically, it's such a feat to make a video. I don't know about everybody. I feel like most people, it takes a decent amount of time. And I feel like it's such a feat just to make the video. Script it, film it, make it sound cohesive. And I feel like that's why I still come back to YouTube, because I'm never not proud of a video. Like just the fact that I made it in general is such a like, okay, like thank goodness. Like if it flopped, it kind of sucks, like, you know, or if it doesn't reach, it kind of sucks, but I still I like that I made this. Like it feels like a collection, like I'm adding things to a collection of art. So it's just like, like that was just a point in my life when this was happening, and you know, it feels cool just to have it there. So I feel like I always come back to that, and I think that's why I've recently gravitated towards YouTube a lot more, because it just feels so much more, something about like the delayed gratification feels more natural and human. It feels healthier. Like I'm supposed to be waiting a week before I feel like I accomplished something, like instead of one day and I just get this cheap thrill from a TikTok video. And then I feel like there's more, I don't know, like substance to it, because I'm getting to articulate the full idea in like a 10 to like 20 minute video or something. Whereas like a TikTok is just like 30 seconds, you know, a minute, 3 minutes. And it's really trying to just entertain people very quickly, you know. And I do like that style of video, and I do think there's value in it too. I just like, that's why I feel like I'm always TikToks. I can feel like if they flopped, it's like whatever. I don't even feel anything with it. But with a video, even if it flops, like a whole YouTube video, I still feel like, well, I put that together for like 2 weeks, so that was like a chunk of my life, you know. So it feels more meaty. It just, I don't know, it feels better. So
TikTok is, it's never been good to me.
It's not being good to me either. And I'm having to trust the process with that too, because I'm feeling not as pulled to it right now. I don't know if I burned myself out after posting so much for a year, but I feel like I'm trying to balance my feelings with every platform and how I feel as an entrepreneur. It's just a lot of feelings to balance. And I think being patient is a huge part of this. Right. Just like not giving up when things aren't going your way. Just putting like pausing, just taking a break. Like, I don't know what to post on TikTok. It doesn't mean I'm just stopping the platform. It just means I don't know right now and I can just wait until something else comes up.
But what I do like about, or the value I have gotten from TikTok is I feel like it made me a better communicator.
Yeah.
Because
you have to do it fast.
I would do these like explained in 60 seconds, like PCA explained in 60 seconds, large language models explained in 60 seconds. And I like that is becoming a better communicator is important to me because people don't, they say I'm a really good communicator now. I don't fully believe them, but also I wasn't always at this level.
Yeah,
I was actually pretty terrible a few years ago. So it's been a long road to get even to here.
Yeah,
so it's important to me to continue developing this skill set. And so what I feel like what helps me with TikTok is just focusing on that as opposed to the response, because I've literally never had anything get more than a few thousand views on TikTok because it's just like not that kind of, it's not the content that typically goes viral on TikTok.
Yeah, and I would say you're like probably one of the only people creating content in the data space on TikTok. Like probably
there are a few other ones.
Yeah, but there's so not a lot of them. It's kind of crazy actually. But I think that's just a mindset thing. Like you've found another reason as to why you can be posting on there consistently, and I think you have to with all of these apps, with this job career path, you need something else. You need something other than the outcome. Like Layla Hormozi was saying, like somebody was asking her, how do you be patient? She's a very famous entrepreneur. Her and her husband own an acquisition firm. They own an private equity firm
called acquisition.com.
Her and her husband own a private equity firm, and they're pretty big on YouTube and all the platforms. But she was saying, somebody was asking her, how do you like stay so patient or like focus or something, and she was just like, I have to like focus on something else. Like you have to put your attention on something else. And I think if you don't have a mindset that keeps you going, like, hey, maybe I'm not going to get the views out of this platform, but I'm going to use it to become a better communicator. You just use the thing as a means to an end. And I think we talked about this kind of in our goals, like how to set goals episode. Like it's just the excuse. Like you can kind of think of it that way too. Like the platform is just an excuse for you to become a better storyteller. It's just an excuse for you to become a better marketer or like whatever. Like you need to have a bigger purpose, because you can't bank on the outcome with this thing. And that kind of leads me to like think about the delusion that maybe it seems that we put ourselves under to like keep going. And I've seen people kind of like tear down the whole like delusional trend or mindset or whatever. And if you're not familiar with it, it's basically like, I feel like over the past year or so, people have just been like, oh, I can just tell myself whatever I want, like whatever story I want, and stick with that and see what happens if I stick with that, which I think could be interpreted in so many other ways. Like I think it's just people finally saying like, I'm tired of believing a story that doesn't serve me. I don't care if it's true. And a lot of people are like, oh, you don't need to be delusional. That stuff is true. Whatever you want to call it. I think not only is that helpful, I think you have to. Like, I really feel like there's no other way to stick with something that doesn't make sense to society, because we biologically want to fit in and conform. You have to put yourself under a certain delusional mindset to continue doing something that does not make sense with your peers or people around you.
And the people that say that, oh, that's not delusional, that's actually true, they're just next level delusional.
That's what I'm saying. Like, delusional is not, I mean, if you look up the textbook definition, it's just basically alluding to something that's not true. But like, I don't want to get into a whole other debate, but like truth is also subjective. And I feel like
you decide what is true and what is not true. Like, no matter how many people can be saying this is a fact, you can just very well just say that's not true to me. And I think this time you're just using truth for your benefit. Like, whatever you want it to be, that's going to be your new foundation. And I feel like if you are against the delusional trend or whatever, in a way you are delusional in your own way. Like, you have put yourself under a set of constraints and beliefs. So why not, if you're going to do that anyway, if the default is to be delusional in some way, we're all delusional by telling ourselves a certain story of our life and how things are. If that's going to be a default anyway, you might as well change the delusion to something that you actually want in your life.
Yeah, everyone has beliefs. Everyone has assumptions about the world. Everyone has a model.
They're biased about something.
Yeah, they have their biases. So why not? And those are optional in many ways and subjective in many ways. So why not choose the beliefs, the constraints, the the etc. that serve you and the things that you want to get out of life. I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
I don't understand why you wouldn't, because it's not even that you just think this way. You operate based on those beliefs. Like, we operate based on our thoughts.
Behavior.
Exactly. And so it's like, why wouldn't you set yourself up for the life that you want, like your behaviors to match those delusional thoughts that are in your favor, if you have the ability to do that? And I think with this career path or maybe an unconventional life, I think you kind of have to create this like new reality, this new world. Like for us, we kind of practice these beliefs and kind of repeat them to each other, like, because it's not normal to think in a exponential graph or chart that it's one day something will happen. It's not intuitive. Like, on a day-to-day, you're going to be thinking, if I'm not getting more, I'm getting worse. Like, but you have to kind of train yourself out of that thinking, because it's not real.
This mindset of this is going to last forever kind of thing. We just extrapolate our current conditions forever in the future, and that's just not how it is. Nothing lasts forever.
There was one day we were talking, like, we take our walks, and we usually like sit by the fireplace and like, start reciting our witch chants to each other. We start we like talk about our ideas, and I don't know why, but like, we were just thinking about, like, we have to reframe this, like, if something bad happens on this path, like, I don't get the client, or I did, because at the time you were consulting, I don't get the client, or this doesn't work out, like, I'm not making any money, something's going wrong, and I'm already on this risky path, like, I'm like, then for sure I need to get out, like, I need to save myself because I'm about to die. Like, your human instinct is like, I'm going to die, I need to get out of this situation ASAP. But I think you have to, like, what we did in that moment, I think, is like reframe your thinking. Instead of thinking like, this is awful, it's going to last forever, I have to think, okay, I'm learning a skill right now. And even though it feels like I'm on the brink of like survival, I'm learning a skill that's probably going to be useful in the next however many years. And I thought that was so interesting, because when I was freelancing, I had to be delusional because I had $6,000 to my name, and I literally, like, to use for the rest of my life. And I gave myself the constraint, I can't go back to corporate, so I have to figure out how to make money. And I didn't have any skills I didn't have any professional experience in the field that I wanted to be in, which was marketing. I had to give myself this like fake reality where I'm like, okay, this is a game. I get to play around. I get to do what I want. I get to try things. And I just need to make like $1 more. I just need to make $1,000 more. And I had to create this thing. I did this kind of like subconsciously to keep going, because if I didn't do that, I would have just either gone back to the thing I so desperately wanted to leave, or I would have not survived in that situation. Looking back, I take so much of what I learned back then and use it now. And I'm like, okay, back then when I thought I was going to die, I turned my life into a game and it worked out. And that became a skill, like turning a negative situation into something positive. And I use that frame of thinking now, and it has become very useful now. And I thought that was going to be like a one-time thing, that if I figured it out, great. If I didn't, I die. But it's become like a habit, something I've learned that I can use now. And I use that as an inspiration a lot of times, because it was like I wasn't just like running around town. Like I was developing skills, and I didn't even realize I was developing these skills. And I think that's now when I'm in a situation where I'm like, God, I can't figure this out. There's no way. I don't understand it. And it's like, what if I'm developing skills right now that I'm going to use 5 years from now?
Right.
And if I give up, I won't. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
All the work that you do now is an investment to like
for the future,
basically into for your future. Like even if it's not going to generate any revenue or whatever this month or in 6 months, a subset of what you're learning is going to be valuable long term. Like for me, learning how to learn, learning how to read, learning how to write, learning how to talk, learning how to market, like learning how to build out a funnel, like a sales funnel, learning how to do sales calls, learning how to talk to people, learning how to interview people. You know, like these skills come up in so many different contexts. Like I will do the podcast, I'll host an event, I'll be talking to clients, or I would like in the past talking to clients, or talking to potential like partners or collaborators on something. The ability to like talk and like dig into people, these are all incredibly useful skill sets, like learning how to build a community. Like these are all things that could be worth millions of dollars in the future.
So Shaheen has thought of a really good technique lately that's, I feel like, can really help in the process of trusting the process when you just don't know, but you feel that you're aligned to something.
You mean like the pick one mentality? At any point in your entrepreneurial career, you're going to have to prioritize and focus on something. And you can't just keep bouncing around between like half-assed ideas. Like you have to give it a go. Like you really have to commit to the thing. And like you with your consulting business, you committed to that and you were in on it. Maybe it wasn't fully it, but you pivoted later, you know? And, you know, now you're doing San. Maybe there's a pivot later, or maybe not. This is it. But at every stage, like, there has to be some level of commitment. And I think that is the superpower of humans, is the commitment. Because just thinking about most people, they graduate college, they go into typically a completely new industry. Like you went into telecommunications, and they start doing a role that they've never done before. Like, so they're
no experience,
no experience, and they're doing this completely new thing. And a lot of time they don't necessarily care about it. Like you didn't care about it, or like it. But what happens after doing that job for even 1 year, 2 years, they get really good at that. They learn a lot about that industry. And what has happened is they've been forced to commit to that role. They've been put into this lane. They've been told, like, these are the constraints. You do this specifically, and we will pay you. And like that system forces them to commit to learning that role, learning that industry, learning how to do that job. What I think people don't realize is you can do that same level of commitment on yourself. Like our ability to adapt to our situation is our greatest superpower. So just like you learned whatever role, like whatever job you're doing now, you're probably brand new to it at a certain point. That same ability you're capable of doing in your own lane, like creating your own job, you know, creating your own situation, and you just commit to it. And you can get really good at it. So like with you and San, you committing to product and retail, you're going to get really good at product and retail. You know? Just putting yourself into that box. So I think that's like the power of commitment.
With committing, it's like either way, it gives you something. So if it's wrong, if it's not the thing you're supposed to be doing, you'll know faster. Like that's why I pivoted so quickly from consulting, because I committed to it as much as I could. Honestly, I don't know if I couldn't
done it 100%.
Really, like I don't even think I could allow myself to do it 100% because it just never felt right.
And I feel like that's a red flag.
And I couldn't, and I'm not somebody who necessarily will procrastinate on everything or just like wait around and be lazy. I feel like if I'm being lazy or being like that, it's something is not aligning. It's always the case. And I think with consulting, I was trying so hard to make it 100%, and I would spend like 5 hours or 10 hours a week on it because I just couldn't bring myself to do more. And then vice versa, when you're doing something that you should be doing, you can see results, or you can get signals faster than if you were to kind of just, 50% it, 25% it. And I think that's why, like,
it's gonna take you twice as long.
Yeah, and that's kind of the bandwagon we're on. It's just like, why don't we just fully commit? Like, why do this side hustle, side job, side thing? I feel like I've tried that like my whole life. Everything I wanted to do, my personal projects have always been on the side. It doesn't work.
And when you're talking about, exponential, non-linear growth, the difference between 20 hours a week and 40 hours a week is not double. And the difference between 40 hours a week and 80 hours a week isn't double. So maybe you're not even going, it's going to be like that phase transition. It's going to go from water to ice, when you go from 40 hours a week to 80 hours a week, or you like really fully commit, like it goes from a side hustle to the main hustle. And you don't see that. Like right now, I don't make enough from content creation to pay the bills. Yeah. But I'm still committing because I feel like there's enough signal there that if I do double down on it,
who knows?
Like it's not just gonna double the
results.
It's gonna quadruple or more. You
know?
Yeah.
So it's in that same way. Like even though putting in double the work may not get you double the outcome, like it could also be even more than that. Like you just never know. And I think if you double down on content for a period of time and you explore more of it, you'll know, you have more information, you have better understanding of the thing because you spent more time with it. So I feel like especially after the consulting, situation, I just feel like, okay, now I fully know why consulting is not the
for
thing.
You.
Like I don't have any idea or question in my head. Like, should I have done? I just know. And
you really went after
it. I did it. It didn't work, and I failed fast. And I think that allows you committing allows you to fail fast and just move on instead of like, oh, I'm gonna 50% it and see if something. And it keeps things lingering for longer than they need to be. And so I feel like that is just a really good example. Like if you can commit to something you don't even like and be really good at it or make money from it,
be a professional, be getting paid $100,000 a year to
generate value for people to pay you that much. You imagine if you put that same energy towards the thing that you actually want, which is, a lot of the things I preach with like San Rizan is just really committing to things that actually matter to you. Like what would that kind of life look like? And that's what back to the mindset thing, like that's what's been guiding me the most. Is like I'm, instead of just making content or instead of just trying to be a entrepreneur, like I'm really focused on answering a question. Like what if I put my all? I'm testing a hypothesis. Like what if I put my all into something I actually care about, and I only do things that are aligned with me? What kind of life could I create from that? And if that life is good, why would I waste time doing anything else other than that? Because I'm doing something I'm aligned with, and it gets me more money, and I get to connect with people I actually care about. Like why wouldn't I do that if that's an option? And I think not to get too much into that world, but like I feel like that's something that we have to try. Like I'm willing, I think the skills, the strengths, and the personality to do that, even if people don't want to do it, and be the guinea pig. Like I'm willing to do that. And I feel like there's something you're willing to do that other people are not willing to do. So you can pursue that and commit to that easier than somebody else could. And I think that's the beauty of everybody actually going after what their unique interests and skills, because you have it in a way that even if other people could do it, they wouldn't do it the way you do, and they don't care about it the way you do. So you can be the kind of like example in that industry or that field or that lifestyle niche, that people need to see if they're like you, know, if they want to do the things you're doing.
And the odds are, if you're feeling something and something is genuine, authentic to you, we're all,
feeling it.
There are probably people in your generation coming from similar backgrounds that feel exactly the same way,
and they never had anybody to be
and it's
example.
A small percentage of people that are willing to trek into the unconventional, into the unpaved arenas, and you kind of have to just do it for them, because these people are essentially you, just on slightly different realities.
There was something that you said a while ago. You said let go of the when and how and start thinking about the what and the why.
I think this of course there are realities to business and life. Like you have to make enough, you have to survive, However, I feel this survival requirements are we're much further from them than we may feel at any given moment. Like we might, and I feel like we always feel like we're on the edge of survival.
Like we're going to die.
Yeah, like we're going to die. And it is relative to where you're at. So like I can imagine someone that is, very well off, like death would be not having the latest,
clothes or car
or whatever. Like that's death, because then they're gonna get,
they're gonna look poor to their friends.
Yeah,
or something.
And like their status is gonna kind of be diminished to their social network, social group. Most people, especially in America, you are so far away from really dying. But our psychology doesn't allow us to realize that. We always feel like if things deviate from how they are right now, we're gonna die. But I feel like, and this kind of goes with the missionary's mindset as well, like you're not so hyper focused on like the dollars and cents and like, okay, when's that gonna happen, how's that gonna happen, like the details, but you're focused more on the big picture. Like, okay, what do I want to do and why do I want to do that? And if that is solid, everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah. And I can feel when people kind of just drop out of the conversation out of that, like at that point, when you start saying, think about what you want to do and why you want to do it. Everybody's just like, look, lady, I got to pay bills.
Because you know what it is? How and whens are generated from what and why.
Yes.
And like this is kind of like what you do in physics. Like you have your ground, like you have the ground principles, like the things that you're assuming to be true, and you build predictions and theories on top of them. This analogy is probably not going to make any sense to anyone, but like when everyone's doing physics in school, they just have these equations. It's like, okay, if you want to calculate this, you use this specific equation. But the thing is, those equations are derived from deeper principles, and that equation only works in a very particular context, in a very specific situation. So it's kind of a weak thing to carry around with you, which is why I never liked memorizing equations. I want to know the principles, so I can just generate the equations whenever I need it. You know what I mean? If you know the fundamental truths of how things are, you can generate those, the practical things as needed. The tools as needed. And so it's like the difference when you're focused on how and when, all you're doing is focusing on like what tools and tricks can I use.
And it's giving hacks.
It's all like hacks and what's not. But when you are focused on the what and why, you can create and find the tools as you need them.
That's not the problem. Yes, 100%. Like that's not the thing you should be looking for. I think everybody's looking for the latest job hack or latest startup hack or like whatever kind of business they can finesse their way into so they can achieve money and success, when really I think that is a side effect of when you are doing something that is aligned and is impactful to you and other people. Like you have already achieved all of the hacks by just doing something that means something to you. And I think when they're focused on the when and the how, you have it's shallow. There's no basis of reality. And like, to give an example, if you're thinking about when and how, you're usually thinking about like, when am I going to make money and how am I going to make it? I mean, that just to give you the most basic example. So let's just say somebody with that mentality is like, I'm going to become a drop shipper because I can predict when I'm going to make the money and how. I'm going to use drop shipping tools to
use these hacks, use these tactics.
It's the same thing. Like, when am I going to blow up on social media and how am I going to do it? So then that kind of person.
When is my post going to go viral?
When is my post going to go viral and how am I going to make it go viral? And I think that's it. Like, it's funny to say it out loud, but that is a lot of how we think. Like, most of my clients were, how am I going to go viral and when is it going to happen? And when can I make money from this? And
you can be a missionary and still fall into, I feel like, mercenary traps here and there. But I think in that situation, and a lot of times if you are listening to the right gurus on TikTok, that's not the point. That's so not the point. Going viral is a side effect of you talking about something that people care about. Yeah. And I think if you're thinking about when and the how in that context of social media and going viral, you're going to be like, okay, what's the easiest app that I can go viral on? Okay, let me choose TikTok because that's where you go viral. Okay, when am I going to go viral now? You're going to listen to the advice that tells you to post 17 TikToks a day and make them super low quality. And it doesn't matter how you feel, what you're thinking about. Look up trends that people are talking about and make videos about them.
Tricks and hacks.
And okay. Best case scenario, you have chosen the right app and you know exactly when you're going to go viral and how many times. What is the probability that you like what you're talking about? It's truthful. Right. It's impactful to the audience you're looking for. With you. And you also just somehow make a lot of money from talking about all of these things, these random trendy topics, using these viral sounds. Yeah. It's not high. Let me just tell you that. Like, the fact that you're going to find all this alignment by just focusing on how to make money and when, that's not the way. And I think it's easier, it's cheaper, it's quicker, it's faster. People like it. It's sexy, it's easy to sell. And that's why people are selling that kind of, strategy on all of these platforms, or business and in business and all that stuff. But whenever you go for the what and the why, it's slower. You have to take time. You have to iterate. You have to practice. You're not sure yet how to sell that story to people. You're not sure how they want to
provides value.
Exactly.
To people.
How to put it into a package or a product. And it takes time, and people don't want that, but that's what lasts. Whenever you finally figure out the what and the why, and you figure out the when and the how, you're now in this perfect synergy. It's not like you have to because in that other scenario, that person might get the when and the how, but they feel unfulfilled. They have to go back again and do what the what and the why person was doing 5 years ago. But now they're making all this money and they hate what they're talking about. They hate their brand. They hate everything about it, and they have to go back and do it anyway. So it's like, there's no point in trying to rush the process to get these quick wins. You're gonna have to go back and do the work like everybody else did 10 years ago. You might as well just start that process now. You know what I mean? And fall in love with what you're actually trying to do, instead of the money or the outcome or the followers or the whatever. And I don't know, I feel like that's a good way to think about it. And kind of like, if you need to, take pride in the fact that you're doing it the way it's supposed to be. That's how things that last are supposed to take time. They're supposed to be confusing. They're supposed to be hard. Think about anything good in your life. Was it just in 5 minutes, or like a slot machine? Those things probably left your life very quickly and showed why they're not meant to last. But the things that take time, your degree, your friendships, your relationships, maybe your career that you've built, it takes time. It's confusing, and there's a reason
it's a long
why.
Road
to the figuring it out. So I feel like that's a really good way to ground yourself again when you get caught up, because naturally we all get caught up in all of these little tricks and stuff, but those are just tools to help the foundation you already have. Always think about the foundation is the point. Everything else is a tool to help me maintain or grow this foundation.
So I think that brings us to the day-to-day when you're feeling overwhelmed, because it's not so clear the how and when and maybe you're not even super clear about the what and why yet. So I think just one thing that is always helpful, because there's a lot of uncertainty and anxiety when you're going down this path, is just to narrow your scope. It's just to think of things one day at a time, one task at a time. Because if you try to
you can't.
So many times, especially last year, I would get caught up how are we going to keep doing this? The number of the savings is just going down, 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 And I feel when I was just thinking too far ahead into the future, it's I don't even know what 6 months from now is. I don't even know what 2 weeks from now is going to look like.
And then also accepting that there's no point in trying to think about it, because you don't know.
And you don't have enough information to make a good plan about it.
When you're living we're kind of living, even though we're not living month to month, we're in that kind of anything can change in a month or anything can change in a week. Okay. So one rule that we created for ourselves is like anytime that we're starting to worry about money or whatever, because we do have kind of a set timeline of how long we can survive. So we know when it's going to run out.
Right. If we make no money.
If we make no money. We know when it's going to run out. So there's no point in trying to guesstimate or over worry or whatever. Like when it comes to that time when the money runs out, or before that, like around that time, we will start to develop a plan with more informed information, with more of an informed decision, because we have the context to apply it to. And so it's like now when we start to get worried, like, oh, what are we gonna do? Like, what's 6 months gonna look like from now? What's 2 months gonna look like? Like, how are we gonna make more money for a future date that we don't even know?
Because no matter, those emotions still come up from time to
time. They will insert that, because you're thinking about your survival. We have told ourselves that the moment we start worrying about things prematurely, we have to put that energy into the day-to-day, into the work.
Turn the anxiety into action.
Exactly. And I feel like that's been a really helpful, it almost feels like you're brainwashing yourself, because your instinct is going to be like, wait, like, even though I know I can make it till then, how can I just make sure I have extra cushion? How can I make sure I have extra money just in case something happens? And I feel like this lifestyle has turned us into like, you have to think just in time.
Yeah, just in time.
Just in time. It's something I learned in my supply chain classes. It's like, use it in logistics. Like like the Amazons of the world. Like you have to use that strategy, because you can't have excess. Waste is inefficiency. And when you're operating on such a large scale, like that waste will add up. So they get shipments, they get orders, they use warehouses just in time so that they can like make basically the whole system efficient.
Well, it's originally from Toyota.
Right. Well, and we learn about that.
And it's funny, the more I learn about like business school type materials, the more I'm like, this is just Toyota stuff.
They really revolutionized the Japanese people in general.
But the idea is like, you have this manufacturing line. Basically, you need the part there. The moment that the operator, like the assembly line guy, is reaching over to put that part onto the vehicle, you need it right at that second. So that would be true just in time. And so it's like, okay, how do we make that ideal happen? And like that's kind of like the basic idea.
Exactly. And we think about that. We try to put that in the context of our survival. Like we don't need excess money, because if we are optimizing our cushion, which is not the goal. We're trying to optimize our career and alignment and all these other things. If we're optimizing our cushion, we're going to be distracting our day-to-day with, how can I get an extra buck? Like, how can I get an extra gig? Which could be taking away from the true goal. And we don't get anything we want. So we're getting extra cushion and it's taken away from our goal. Then the process is going to take longer. It doesn't make sense. And I think you have to, again, it's like, during this process, you really have to catch these little tricks that your brain will play, because your brain is trying to optimize for something it thinks it's going to happen. It doesn't know. And I think when you're choosing, instead of waiting for an outcome and you're choosing an outcome, you have to constantly be like, go back to this outcome, go back to this outcome, because you're no longer just waiting for somebody to give you something. You have to create it. So you have to keep forcing it in your life, no matter how much your brain is going to be like, but we have to worry about next month. We have to you have to just keep being like, nope, like, sorry. It's like meditation. Like your thoughts will continue to come, but you have to just keep being like, all right, that's fine. Go back to the point. All right, that's fine. Go back. And like, it's just this continuous cycle. And one of the biggest things is time. Like, go back to today. What am I going to do today? What am I going to accomplish by the end of this week? Next? This quarter? Like thinking in these like blocks are really helpful, because I can't guarantee what's going to happen in the next few months. But in Q2, I can decide that these are my top priorities. I can decide that I want to see this result in myself or in my performance by the end of this quarter. And that is a much better thing to focus on, because while you're focusing on the present or the day-to-day, you don't realize how many things are shifting in your external reality. Like a few months ago, I decided that I was going to learn French. And it's like, now I'm starting to see my brain pick up on words that I didn't even think I knew. And it's just so interesting. And it's honestly so part-time. Like I'm practicing French like 3 hours a week at best. And it's crazy because I told myself by the end of this year I want to be conversational in French, and I thought that like, oh my God, that's gonna be so hard. And it's just like, oh my God, it's only been like 3 months, and I'm like doing this like a few hours like a week basically, and how much progress I'm making in this short amount of time is just because I told myself to focus on it.
Yeah,
I could have just been, and I have to reroute my brain every time I have to practice French. Like, you have to do this, like it's hard, I don't want to, I already know English, but like you have to just keep pushing it that way. Or like how I work out now, or how much I read now, like it's just things that I actually care to get better in. And not everything has been like, oh, see, now I've become the best reader in the world or something. It's not like everything has become this magical thing all of a sudden, but I think things will compound over time, and I won't even notice it. Because I'm so focused on the day to day. It's actually so much easier to do that. Like, even when you're actually on the brink of survival, thinking about the future is not even like a fun, I'm anxious and overthinker. Like, it's not cute to be like that. It's like, actually, like, I don't even want to think about that. So I feel like it's actually easier in a way to not think about money, not think about, and some people, I don't know, that's just always been me. I can delude myself very easily, so like it's just easier to not think about stuff. But I really feel like that will help a lot of people. Just to, it sounds crazy, but just don't think about it.
It's been helpful.
And then whenever things work out, it's just a bonus because you're already so used to doing things on a day-to-day. It's like, oh, the success is actually like just a cherry on top. And that's kind of how you want it to be. You want it to be a side effect. You want it to be a just, something that happens along the way, because that's not necessarily the reason you're doing it. That's not
your what or why.
Exactly. So, well, thank you guys for joining us for another gloomy Sunday chat.
Have we done this before?
I don't know. I feel like it's been gloomy on a Sunday, but we will be back next week. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to subscribe on our YouTube. Watch on our YouTube if you're listening, and toodaloo.